In this project, we're going to use the pen tool to cut out the image of the Polaroid camera from another scene. And then we've seen how we can use shapes and add shapes to our project. What we're going to do in this project is create our own shape and add it to our shapes panel for future use. And that shape's going to be the Polaroid frame that you see here in this image. I did an internet search for the dimensions of a Polaroid frame, and this is what I found. There's actually a couple different sizes out there. This is the one we're going to use. It's 4 inches wide by 4.1 inches high. And then there's a 1/4 inch margin at the top, the left, and the right. And then a larger area at the bottom, which was typically designed for you to write something in. So with that in mind, let's go over to Photoshop. We're going to start by creating a document just for our shape that we're going to use. And so I'm creating a new document that's 4 inches wide by 4.1 inches high at a resolution of 300 ppi. Click Create. I'm on a ruler guide from the left at 1/4 inch. Another one at 3.75 inches, or 1/4 inch from the right. 1/4 inch from the top. And to make this easier, I want one that's 2.9 inches from this line. I can grab the 0 marker from the upper left of my rulers where they intersect, drag down and place it on those two ruler guides. So now my 0 is at this ruler guide and this ruler guide on the vertical. And I can very easily drag a ruler guide down. It's going to measure from that 0. I want to come down to 2.9 inches. We're pretty close. 2.902 is probably close enough. Now, since we're creating a shape, we want to draw with shapes. So I'm going to go to the Shape Tools, get the Rectangle tool. It doesn't matter what color you use. I'm just going to, so we can see this, I'll make a nice bright red. And I want a solid fill with that color, and I want my stroke to be nothing. And we'll take the Rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw a rectangle that is the size of my canvas. Then on the options bar, we go drop down where we're creating a new layer, but there's an option here for exclude overlapping shapes. I'm going to make that my selection, and now I'm going to draw another rectangle using my ruler guide. That's going to be the interior of this frame where the photo is going to show through. And basically that knocks that area out. Next, I'll take my direct selection tool. I'm going to click on my frame, go to the edit menu, and choose Define Custom Shape. And I'm going to name this Polaroid Frame. So I've had another one I did earlier. I'm going to name it Polaroid Frame 2. And then I can get rid of that. Now, just to show you how this works, I'm going to bring up the Shapes panel. And there is my shape. And I can drag it and create new ones. And I can resize, holding down the Shift key, grabbing the corner. I can drag it. With it selected, I can even change the color. I'm going to click on my background. If I change the color of my foreground, I'll make it magenta, and I create another one. It'll have that magenta color. Let me close the Shapes palette. Get rid of that. And if I come up to the Custom Shape tool, I can choose in my shapes, but there's also my Polaroid. I can select that. And I can drag any size I want. If I hold down the Shift key, it'll constrain proportion. If I don't hold down the Shift key, I can make a new shape if I wanted. Okay, so now we have our own shape for the Polaroid frame. We're ready to create our advertisement for the Blue Veil Polaroid photography. I'm going to close this document. Don't need to save it. I've downloaded an image of a Polaroid land camera that I found at pexels.com. I downloaded the large 1920 by 1280 resolution. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the pen tool to cut out this camera from its background. Now I know there's other ways to do this. There's the new AI, the select subject tool that works really well, especially on this image, will probably work great. But I want to give you some practice on the pen tool because it does come in handy sometimes. And this is a great image to practice on using the pen tool because there's a lot of very straight edges and a few slight curves. So I'm going to take the pen tool. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to zoom in because it's probably easier to do this at a little bit larger resolution. It'll be easier then for you to see. So if you hold the space bar down, you can get the hand and you can move the image around. So I'm going to take the pen tool, and I'm going to start here at the bottom, about where this picture is underneath the camera. It's kind of the end of the flat area of the camera. I'm going to click there, and then I'm going to come up and after the curve, click and drag. And I'm dragging the handle out kind of up along the side, and you can see the line conform to that curve. And then we're going to come up to this point at the top where the black ends. Click. There's a little bit of an indentation here, so I'm just going to click again on that corner. Go up to where the straight edge ends. Click. And then after the curve, once again, I'm going to drag my curve out. Go along the straight edge, drag this curve out, go along the straight edge. Now I can use the space bar again and just drag down. So here I got a little slight curve, another slight curve. Dragging out that curve, come up straight. Slight curve there. And again, space bar. So I'm going to speed up a little bit here. And this just takes some practice. Now in this case, my handle's going out a little bit. So one thing you can do is hold down the Alt key or Option key on the Mac and click on the point. That'll get rid of that handle. And that's really great if you want to change directions, because the Bezier curve is going to follow that handle initially. A little bit of a blur here. I'm not going to worry too much about that blur. I'm going to cut more along the inside of that. So once again, here's another one where I'd want to probably do an Alt click or Option click. And we're going to blur the edge of this when we bring it into our document. If you make a mistake, you can always do Control Z. Now before we had the select subject AI tools, I would have said that this is probably the most important thing to learn to do, is to use the pen tool to make selections. Because it really does give you the best accuracy oftentimes in making these type of selections. Now when I'm doing this, I'm usually kind of keeping my finger right above the Alt key and using that as I need. And it's always better to come into your subject a little bit than be on the outside. We don't want any ghost artifacts. And this one, the bottom edge is not quite straight, so I'm going to curve it a little bit. Alt click on that. I'm going to join these 2 points together. And you'll see that open circle now becomes closed. So I can go to the paths menu, and I can see I have a working path. Let me zoom out. So now you see the path all the way on the camera. There's my working path. I'm going to make a selection. I'm going to feather it about 2 pixels. And probably a good idea at this point just to save our selection and name it camera. And come down to go back to the layers, and I still have my selection, and I can make a mask. So there's my camera. Everything else taken out of the picture. I'm going to save that as Polaroid camera. Now we're going to create a new document. File, New. We're going to create this as a postcard that's half page. So I'm going to go to Print, and it's going to be 8.5 inches wide, but it's going to be a half a page, which is 5.5 inches, 300 ppi. Click Create. I'm going to pull my Polaroid camera image down so it's in its own window. And then I'm going to grab that layer and drag it over. So there's my camera. Now it's already a little blurry here on the side. I don't mind transforming this and scaling it up just a little bit. Like I said, Photoshop does a pretty good job of scaling up, even though I try to avoid that. I just want this to be a little bit bigger. Not much. It'll still look pretty good. Let's name this layer Camera. And I can close my camera image that we created earlier. I'm going to take the background. Let's go to the gradient tool. Let's go to the gradient tool. And on the drop down, I'm going to go to the blues folder. I'm going to get this very first one, just kind of a darker blue to a lighter blue. And we'll do a slight diagonal on it. Actually, I think I want something a little bit darker. Let's do the second one. Okay, I like that better. I'm going to take my type tool. I'm going to click. I'm going to make this Arial black 24 point. I'm going to get kind of a darker blue. And I'll type. I'm going to center my text left and right. And this might be one where we want to select that text. Bring the tracking in a little bit, I'll do -25. And then perhaps I'll bring the size up just a bit. Maybe about 25 point. That looks good. Now I want to do some text on the bottom. On this type, I'm going to use a script font, such as you might see on a wedding invitation. I'm going to choose the Edwardian script, ITC. If you don't have that, you can probably find it, Google it, download, install it. I'm going to choose a size of about 50. Now you can see that the O and the R here is not connecting very well, and the E and the M. That's because I have tracking turned on. You don't want to use tracking when you're using a script font. These are designed for the letters to connect. So I'm going to come over and set the tracking to 0. Now you can see they connect much better. And let's type our text. It's going to be Blue Veil Polaroid Photography. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. Let's go 54 point. I'm going to make this a little bit darker blue so it shows up a bit better. And I'm going to also add a layer style of outer glow. I'm going to choose a blue color. I'm going to set the opacity maybe about 75%, 80%. I'm going to bring the noise up a little bit. I'll set the noise at about 20 and click OK. That looks good to me. Now our next step is to bring in those custom shapes we created of the Polaroid frames. I want those to be basically behind the camera. So I'm going to go to the background layer. I'm going to go to the custom shape tool. I'm going to select that Polaroid frame that we created. And I'm going to hold down the Shift key and drag and create the frame. Make that white. I'm going to go to the Edit menu and let's rotate this a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of a drop shadow to that layer. Very slight. Click OK. Then I'm going to duplicate that layer. Move it over. I'm going to rotate this one. Move it into place. And now I'd like to go out and find 2 wedding photos of your choice. I have these 2 images that I've opened. Bride and groom, hands with the wedding rings. And I'm going to select this and just simply drag it with the Shift key onto my document. That'll put it in the center. Let's move this one out of the way. I'm going to drag my layer down to just above the background. And I'm going to scale it. And also rotate it. Basically square with the image. I want that other Polaroid frame to be behind all this. I'm going to move this up in my layer order so it's above that other Polaroid frame. And I want to mask this out just to get the image. So here's where we can use the pen tool again. I'm going to take the pen tool, and since this is behind the frame, I'm just going to basically select the area inside that frame, get a path, make a selection, in the path panel, go back to layers, and we'll mask it. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the other image. Bring this image over. Take the move tool, it's going to move it so I can see the handles when I scale it. And let's drag this one to behind our other frame. And again, we can rotate this. Scale it down a little bit more. You can decide on your images what's going to look best. Press the Enter key. I'm going to close those images. And then once again, I'll take the pen tool. Go to Paths, make that a selection. Go to Layers and Mask. Oh, we need one more thing, and that is we probably need a contact information. So again, I'm going to go back to Arial. 24 point. Now it's a little crowded here at the edge. We want to make sure we leave margins. So again, I'm going to move that up. I'm going to select the Blue Veil Photography. Bring that up. Decide where the phone number should go. I think it looks good there. I'm going to grab the camera and drag it up a little bit. So I'm done with an image. I like to look it over, look at the details, make sure I didn't make any mistakes. And I notice I have a light blue outline on each of my Polaroid frames. I want to fix that. So I'm going to click on the Polaroid frame in the layers, take the direct selection tool, I'm going to click on it, go to Paths, select my path, and make a selection. I'm going to feather it a little bit, and up here on the options bar, I can now change the color. I'm going to do just a really light gray. Come back to my layers. Let's click on the background to deselect. Control D. That looks much better. I'm going to do the same thing on the other one. Select the layer, go to Paths, make selection, feather it as 2. And once again, choose that light gray, layers, background, Control D to deselect. And now that looks much better. The last thing I'm going to do is I think my text at the top is just a little bit too low. So I'm going to take it and just take the Move tool and just bring it up a little bit. And there is my document. I'm going to go to the File menu, choose Save As. I'll name this FO2 Polaroid Photography and my last name. Same as a PSD file. I'm going to click Save, and then I'm going to also save this as a JPEG. And we're done. If you'd like to see more videos in the Photoshop Practicum playlist, click the title at the bottom. If you'd like to be alerted to new videos, please click my photo in the top right to subscribe to the channel.